Going once, going twice, sold to the man in the front row. There it went. The last valuable item sold at the local auction house. Or was it? In the back of the room, against the corner wall, rested an old violin that had been left to gather dust. Over the course of the day, thousands passed by it. Few glanced at it, chuckling at it in comparison to the priceless jewels that had adorned every nook over the room. Seconds after the auctioneer had laid his gavel to rest, a young woman walked through the wooden back doors, picked up the seemingly worthless instrument, laid her chin in place, ran her fingers along the strings, and began to play some of the sweetest, most inspirational music anyone had ever heard. For a moment, the crowd sat in stunned silence, taking in the sweet sounds coming from the old violin. However, within seconds, all one could hear was the myriad of bids that would increase by the thousand. A once forgotten piece of wood had now become a priceless artifact. We, as Americans, have our own violin, our own forgotten artifact. We call it the Constitution of the United States of America. It is time for us to assume our role as master musicians, to rediscover a document that has too long been taken for granted. All too often, we hear shouts for the individual rights the Constitution guarantees, and barely a whisper about the opportunities this document affords us in giving back to our world. The Constitution is more than just a sounding board for individual rights. It is a living rally for individual responsibility. Throughout history, the Constitution has been upheld and cherished as the document of the people. Over time, this glory has become diluted, its legacy shoved into the background. All too often, we hear Americans talk about individual rights. But do we know why we have those rights? We hear shouts of too much government control. But do we know how government works? These simple questions are the questions many leave unanswered. In a recent survey by the Brennan Center for Justice, 76% of respondents said that they believe in the importance of the Constitution. However, most admit that their own knowledge came up short, with just 16% saying they were very familiar with the document. As our knowledge of the Constitution fades, so too does our awareness of our responsibility to it, our connection to it, our ability to change the world with it. Shortly after the penning of the Constitution, George Washington vowed, "The Constitution is the guide which I will never abandon." For him, these were not just words. They were a call to action. Our founding fathers answered this call when they stood up to rebel against the abominations of paying taxes without representation, quartering soldiers upon demand, and having parts of their land stripped away. But more than that, the American Revolution gave way to the realization of the need for a government of the people. It is that need to set up an intricate government that has propelled the creation of the Constitution. And that need that allows future generations to lay the groundwork for change based on its principles. When the Constitution was written during the blazing hot summer of 1787, 55 men gathered in Independence Hall. And what they produced has become our opportunity to inspire change in our world. The Constitution is the product of months of debate, years of doubt, and centuries of success. When it was created, it was meant to set forth a government that could give to its people both liberty and freedom while maintaining order and justice. Today, it does more than just give us these ideals. It acts as the platform from which we have the ability to propel change in our communities. As citizens, we have the right to elect our leaders, to cast ballots for our beliefs, to be a part of the nation we call home. This document has created a government that is separated into 3 branches, powered by a system of checks and balances. It has made possible the freedom of speech and freedom of religion. It has settled issues of states' rights, interstate commerce, taxation, and so much more. Our founding fathers once used the Constitution to change the world of 1787. It is now our turn, our responsibility to do the same. It has been shown time and time again that those who embrace their constitutional responsibilities have indeed revolutionized America. For example, the NAACP had used their knowledge of the Constitution to implement a goal that would change the life of every American. That goal was realized in the Brown versus Board of Education decision that has created an equal and united student coalition. Or how about when Clarence Gideon, a man accused of a felony yet denied the right to an attorney, was forced to fend for himself. Confined to the 4 walls of his prison cell, Gideon researched the Constitution and was able to find why he was entitled the right to the attorney, who would later acquit him of all charges. In Gideon versus Wainwright, it was unanimously held that the Constitution provided the right to an attorney. By understanding the Constitution, we are better equipped to fight for justice, to be the change we want to see in the world, to maintain the essence of this nation. Whether that's getting back to the voting booth, involving oneself in community affairs, holding government office, teaching those around us about the Constitution, and especially using the Constitution to propel change in our communities, we must embrace our constitutional responsibilities. The future of America is now in our hands. By understanding the Constitution, we are better able to preserve the country our soldiers died for, the country we can no longer take for granted, the country we must vow to sustain and propel. We are all master musicians in the eyes of our country. We all have a hand in tilting the bow one way or the other. We choose the song we play, whether it is one of individuality or cultural responsibility. We are one with the Constitution, and the Constitution should be one with us. With it, we have the potential to produce magic. Magic that will inspire the world. It is time for us to pick up the bow, to lay our chins in place, and with the most cherished violin in history, the Constitution, present to the world the greatest symphony of inspiration, knowledge, and Americanism that will provoke people to stop and listen, to see the beauty, to see the legacy, to see the Constitution.